This is the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast.
Oh no! We suck again!
I'm getting confused. What game are you calling?
I'm calling both games!
It is caught by Kelsey! Touchdown! Kansas City!
I need 3 of those things, baby! We ain't done yet! We ain't done yet! You like that? You like that? I like that!
How's it going, Ruckus and The Menace Sports fam? This is episode number 110 of the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast. I'm Spence the Menace.
And I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
And on this episode, our transaction log will have a little bit of housekeeping. Our Eastwood segment, the good, the bad, and the ugly. A brief high heat involving the 2024 Paris Olympic wrap-up. Our main high heat of the AFC and NFC North NFL preview. And we go in with our stud and dud of the week. And we have a special shout out as this week is also the birthday of one half of this podcast. But it is not me as the half. It is the other half of Ruckus.
Yay! Yep, I turned the ripe age of 27. As long as I'm not a musical artist, I am probably A-okay. But last night was a lot of fun as far as playing a little baseball. I played catcher for 8 innings straight, and now my body hates me, but I'm recovering.
Or at least I think the interesting thing that Drake would say with that is he's only 27 and he's only getting better. If you haven't noticed, watch you catch up. But granted, that song, that 0 to 100, the catch up, I think that was years before you would have been 27. So
I was 16 or 17 whenever that song dropped. That was 2014.
Yeah, I wasn't, and I was.
Good.
Yeah, I wasn't even, and actually, even at that point, I was not 27 yet. I actually would have been only 24.
I was just beginning to drive in high school whenever that song came out.
I was actually a couple years out of college. So
Whole squad on that real shit.
all right. A little bit of housekeeping we got going on here. March to October's for MLB The Show. They are still in full swing. They continue on Thursdays until Labor Day weekend. On Labor Day weekend, you will have an episode on September 1st and September 2nd. And those will actually be the biggest wrap-ups of Season 2 of March to October. Road to Glory. It launched this past Wednesday with actually some really, really good success, surprisingly. As so far, starting out at the University of Iowa is good. However, I had to make a change at some point, and you will find out about that later. And the JMU stuff is still going as well. That one has just started, and recording-wise, I am almost through Season 1. Almost through Season 1 of from G5 to Natty. But a new announcement in terms of that. Our second Road to Glory on my end will be recorded and released after the running back Road to Glory is complete. And I am going to tell you all the theme of this one. It will be with a Captain America in Steve Rogers as a quarterback. Yes, I The biggest thing I found dissatisfying with playing a running back in Road to Glory is that a lot of the control kind of just goes away. Like, you feel like you're not really in control of a lot of the action. So I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to play as a quarterback. But I am going to keep the running back Road to Glory alive in doing so. So I decided that this next one, I'm just going to do a new one. And that is likely to launch. I think I've recorded into my junior year in Road to Glory, and I'm still maybe like midway through it. So you guys may not see that Road to Glory officially come to fruition until likely in November. November, possibly even right around Thanksgiving. But I am keeping that project on your radar. And now we can move on to our Eastwood segment and get right into the true sports of the podcast. In the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that beautiful tumbleweed footage.
All right. So,
And I will let Ruckus.
Okay.
I was going to let you kick this off with the good this week because I kind of did a lot of the housekeeping.
All right, let's do it. All right. White Sox snap losing skid at AL record tying 21 in a row. Wow.
Well, I mean, they had been losing a lot, but I think it was nice for them to get the win. Nice for them to actually win and get off the schneid.
They got lost in the sauce, but then they came back. But anyways, they fire Pedro Grifol, former interpreter and bench coach of the Royals, that was then promoted to a manager for the White Sox, has now been fired. But a Fuzzy fan favorite, Fuzzy being a very well-known baseball YouTuber, also plays MLB The Show and talks sports news. Go check him out at some point in the future. The White Sox have put Fuzzy favorite Grady Sizemore as the interim manager for the White Sox. Grady Sizemore is known as being one of the great Cleveland Indians / Guardians outfielder, and also played a little bit with Tampa Bay after some injury trouble. But I think it's pretty interesting. We'll see what happens with with Grady Sizemore as the interim manager, whether or not he stays in that role or if they move on. But
yeah, he had also a brief stint, and he also had a brief stint in Boston as well. But he was released in June when a prospect was DFA'd after a top prospect was going to make his way up, but he is not. But that top prospect did not last long. So he had a couple of stints with a few teams, and then ended his career in 2016, and then lost his first game as a manager. Has lost his first one against the manager. Lost his first game as a manager, but they are up 11-2 right now on the Yankees. So the White Sox.
Will it be a good old moment for David Ortiz?
The Yankees lose, and the Red Sox beat the Rangers today. So I am at least happy that we are still somewhat in the wild card race. Still hanging on by a thread, and Ruckus's Royals are ahead. But
hell yeah, brother. But speaking of Red Sox, the bad in sports this week, which happened yesterday in the 6th inning for Jarren Duran, as he was trying to attempt one of Bill Burr's bits on a heckler at Fenway Park during an at-bat in the 6th inning. And what that heckler said was pretty much, along the lines of, "You need a tennis racket. You need a tennis racket." And then Jaren goes, "Shut up, you effing F." And yeah, not a good look in the year of 2024 when there's a lot of canceling and stuff going on, especially outside of sports with YouTube and whatnot. But yeah, not a good look for Duran, to sum that up. But the suspension money is being donated to a organization that against hate of gay, and I believe it was the community of gays and whatnot. But
Yeah.
the if you know the whole Bill Burr bit about what are you, some type of you know what, then there you go. But anyways, that sucked yesterday.
But
But
it
anyways,
is, at least the good news is that it is only a 2-game suspension, so it is not long. So he should be back in by the end of the week. But the first game without him was a win. He's just gonna serve it. He's just gonna serve the 2 games and be right back at it.
all right, and then the ugly for sports this week. I was kind of debating whether or not we wanted to do Duran for the ugly, but this is even worse. Hassan Reddick and Brandon Ayuk team woes. Ayuk wants a new deal, but the 49ers are in a penny pinch, so a trade was requested. And also on that, I'll add more, but Hassan Reddick was traded from the Eagles to the Jets due to not being able to pay Reddick for his new potential deal, and the Jets couldn't make an agreement with Reddick at this time and wants to find a new team elsewhere. There are also sources saying that Reddick will play under contract this season, but that's conflicting information to me, and we'll figure that out. But Ayuk, the situation there, it revolves around a couple different elements to the 49ers, as they signed like an extension with
And they've got Pied Pipers to pet. And the hard part about the Ayuk situation, he wants a new, like, larger deal. But the 49ers, in terms of, like, keeping their integrity, have too many Pied Pipers to potentially pay here in the next offseason. So Ayuk could very well be one of the odd men out in not getting another deal with the 49ers.
and they just extended someone recently. Let me look.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Just there's enough good players on the 49ers that there's not enough money to go around. There's not enough money to go around. Even with the salary caps in the NFL going up, there's not enough money to go around.
Yeah, and Ayuk is kind of like the he's kind of one of the supporting cast members rather than one of the main guys too. So it's very hard to, at least in my eyes.
Well, I think Ayuk is the wide receiver too. They're in San Fran. But there's another team that's been having an issue with a wide receiver too that we'll mention here later. But the other thing I feel bad about with Hassan Reddick, you just got sent to the Jets in March. You're on the last end of what looks like a deal. You're 29. 29. So you're kind of, maybe for a D lineman, you might have a little more time. But your time there, especially at like such a, you're very limited in terms of time.
Kind of reminds me of a certain defensive tackle slash linebacker that had this issue last season for the Chiefs in Chris Jones. But yeah, it's definitely a tall task in a sense for the Jets, and it definitely was for the Eagles because they just paid God damn it, Jalen Hurts the big
Yeah.
contract.
Oh yeah, the quarterback. Yeah. But
Speaking of people, sorry, go ahead.
Well, where I'm looking at, yeah, it's about roughly the same thing because Chris Jones did just turn 30. So yeah, it's roughly the same. So I don't think I definitely know that the 49ers will not pay Ayuk.
I
So
also
Ayuk
found out
will become an
who.
unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, I figured out who they just gave the extension to. It was Christian
Yeah.
McCaffrey. They just extended, and
Oh yeah.
also not only that, Trent Williams is bitching about a more guaranteed money from the 49ers as well, and he has also but not really been attending training camp as well.
Yeah, you're holding out. Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of players trying to hold out for money, especially in San Francisco. And I think the other holdout right now that is super ugly going on right now that we're not mentioning here, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb in Dallas.
And there's a
I
whole
mean,
thread too.
granted that as a Commanders fan and someone who definitely despises the Dallas Cowboys, I hope CeeDee Lamb pulls a Le'Veon Bell. But at the same time, it's like CD's got to know. CD's got to know.
There's a whole rhetoric right now with him and Hollywood having their profile or cover photos on Twitter being them as teammates at OEU, and everyone was pointing signs of, oh, could CD come to the Chiefs? Which, hear me out, it'd be awesome to see CD Lamb in a Chiefs uniform, but is it really going to happen at the end of the day? Probably not, because of the fact that you have to pay the man, and as Brett Veach has shown in the past with players, like especially big name ones. There was a whole thing about Debo coming to the Chiefs a couple years ago. There was a whole thing about another player, but regardless, I don't think CD Lamb would be on the Chiefs this season. If he has to do like a prove it deal like Hollywood does, then it would make sense. But as of now, no. Too much money.
My thought was that it's like, even though CeeDee Lamb did that, it's like, my thinking on this was that y'all would do it, but y'all don't have CeeDee Lamb money.
Right. Because we still had to pay or think about paying our offensive line, because we still have the last year Creed Humphreys deal, I believe. And then you also had to look into us possibly signing Trey Smith to an extension. You've got Trent McDuffie in a year or so.
Oh, yeah, Trent McDuffie. That's got to be somebody you pay, too.
Him, and then Nick Bolton, possibly, if he could stay healthy. My guess is Nick Bolton takes a team-friendly deal, but that is either here nor there, as currently he is hurt in training camp, and so is Justin Reed, but there's a lot of logistics and hoops to jump through for these players, and we'll just see what happens.
There's enough going on. And we will now move. Let's move on quickly to the high heat in terms of some of the notable wrap-up. And the biggest thing that we really have as far as major wrap-up from this week is just the U.S. women's soccer team won gold as far as the women would go. That team also notably has a famous and a notable NBA player's daughter on it. And I'm sure you're probably knowing exactly which person I'm talking about there, involving the last name of Rodman.
So Dennis
Yep.
Rodman's daughter.
Yep, Dennis Rodman's daughter Trinity was a part of that gold medal team.
What
In
team does she
Paris.
play for in WNBA, or is she not?
No, that's not No, I'm talking that's soccer. I'm talking soccer, not basketball.
Oh, my bad.
Trinity. I went with the soccer team first,
Sorry, basketball was on my mind.
but Trinity Rodman does play for the soccer team, for the women's soccer team in DC, as far as professionally. But yeah, yes, it's very weird to say that Dennis Rodman's daughter is a soccer player, especially with and Dennis Rodman was known for being an eccentric NBA player anyway.
Yeah, very athletic genes.
Yeah, but Dennis Rodman was also not known for being a scorer very much on the basketball floor. Was a rebounder pretty much. But nothing like also having the nickname The Worm. But in speaking of basketball, both the U.S. men's and women's teams win gold over France. The women won by 1 point as a shot that nearly would have sent the game into overtime was ruled a 2-pointer instead of a 3, as a player from France's foot was on the line when the shot went in. And the men, it was more decisively, but they had their bigger scare against Serbia in the semis. Which, of course, that doesn't surprise me at all. Because I'm sure you're well aware of at least one notable player that the Serbians had.
For men's,
Yep, for the men.
Jokic.
Yep, the Joker. Yep. And Serbia won the bronze. But the final medal counts. The U.S. had 126 medals. 40 of them, at least 40 of them were gold. China finished in second with 91, and Great Britain finished third with 65. France was fourth, having 64.
USA! 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 All right,
It also kind of helps that the U.S. did have a lot of athletes in multiple sports. They're kind of one of those countries that brings a whole bunch of athletes because to have as much as they possibly can, which does not surprise me, as they're one of those countries that does do that. China has that. I think Japan did a little bit of that. France, of course, because it's the home nation. A lot of the well-developed countries and a lot of countries that have multiple cultures and colonization that ends up coming along could very well do that. And that's just logistics. Like logistics and culture and immigrating. Immigration is it's like the history of immigration.
Dude, I love the memes that came out of the Olympics, like the one with the guy with the revolver, or like or not even a revolver, it was just like a standard gun.
It was a pistol. It was an air pistol.
And then the one younger Japanese lady that was compared to the Red Dead cover for Red Dead 2. I thought that was funny.
Oh,
gosh. I need to go back and watch those, but that was probably the best memes out of all of that.
Yeah, and there were a lot of really... And the Olympics bring a whole bunch of... a lot of interesting sports that you have come together. This year, for the Olympics, you had breakdancing. You had skateboarding. You had handball, like team handball. That is actually quite fun to watch. You had your obvious basketball, you had your obvious track and field, you had your obvious swimming. And gymnastics. But the Olympics, for me, there is so many entertaining sports to watch. Volleyball. And this is volleyball indoor and beach. The beauty of the Summer Olympics is that you have so many different sports that you can actually be an Olympic athlete for. Meanwhile, the Winter Olympics, it's like, oh, unless you're like really, really gifted in snow or in ice, there's only so much you can do.
Hold on. You're telling me that the Jamaican bobsled team isn't in that category?
That's Winter Olympics.
I know. I'm giving you a little...
We're going with the cool runnings type of thing. But that had a little bit of John Candy play in it.
Alright. Are we ready for the next little bit of
Yep.
the high heat?
And this is the main event of the high heat. Our NFL preview last week. We did the AFC South. Next week, we are going into my neck of the woods here and talking about the East. In the NFC East and AFC East, as we only had 4 weeks of NFL preview, Labor Day weekend is going to be kind of a little bit of a recap, like not recap of some things that were there, but then also more so kind of talking some playoff pictures, some notable things around training camp, and also our first week of the film room. The film room is returning. I will say it'll probably be returning within the next 2 weeks because college football will be starting, and we will still be predicting some of the major college football games. So stay tuned for that.
Can
However,
I do a little buffer impression for this, for the previews?
oh, which buffer are you going for here, Michael or Bruce?
Bruce, probably.
As long as you don't go Incredible Hulk and try and smash.
Oh, you. In this corner, weighing in at God knows what weight, we have the AFC North. In this corner, well, what he said about that one, the NFC North. It's time. All right, let's go.
What's that?
You know, see, this is why I caused
We're
the
gonna
ruckus.
We're going to start with the AFC North here. And we go right away into starting with the reigning, defending, undisputed champions of the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens.
Boo! 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 Okay, I'm done. Okay, so I have for the Ravens, my advice to them is keep developing the young talent and stay healthy at running back. Because for, 3 years in a row, they had running back woes where they were either having ankle issues or blowing out ACLs left and right. Keep the talent, solidify the talent, and also stay healthy for the love of God. Go ahead, Spennis.
All right. Well, here's where I'm at. Your greatest strength offensively is the ground game, where you have Lamar Jackson and King Derrick Henry. But And the defense has been a significant model of consistency for the Ravens. So as long as they're able to keep a very good mix offensively, you don't go too heavy and reliant on the run with Jackson and Henry, your read option is absolutely deadly and unpredictable. It is going to be very unpredictable as Derrick Henry runs like a Mack truck and a freight train put together. And Lamar Jackson has so much speed that when you get worn down by the Mack truck, you're now having to trace a Ferrari.
That's a bold claim. I would have said like Porsche or Corvette, but go. Let's keep going.
Fast enough of a car, dagnabbit! Fast enough! As long as they're able to mix that read option and great stuff there with being able to pass the ball effectively, they are going to be scary to beat. And I'm not talking just in terms of their division. They are a team that, as long as they're able to keep all of that somewhat together, they are a team that can make a very deep playoff run. And now we move on to the waivers of the terrible towel. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, Saul, you're going to love this, and I know you will. I hear you out there, but here we go. Steelers
Shut up!
Country. Steelers Country, let's
Shut
ride. Steelers Country, let's ride. Let's ride.
Can you come up with a better one?
No. It's the only one that sounds good. If it's like Steelers Country, let's smelt. Like, that sounds dumb and lame. And
No, I'm talking like actually something perfectly related to what the team is. Like, you couldn't have done anything involving TJ Watt, George Pickens.
Nah, it's Russell Wilson's team. What are you talking about?
Russell Wilson might not even be the starter. You have gone through this whole entire thing with Russell Wilson not even being the starting quarterback. Yes, so here's where I'm at. Two quarterbacks. You've got Russell Wilson, you've got Justin Fields. You've got two potential starting quarterbacks here. This equals no quarterbacks. You have no true number one alpha dog starting quarterback. Make a decision here. Let the rest fall into place. And see what you can do to try and get receivers like George Pickens and tight ends like Pat Freiermuth there. Oh, wait. You have an offensive coordinator who will generally say, screw the fantasy numbers, screw the passing game, and run the football down the throats of the defense. Oh, wait. You've got enough with power of Najee Harris, who can be a power runner. You've got a speed back in Jalen Ward. You've got a running quarterback in Justin Fields, who you can pull some stuff that's a little more spread. But, oh no, that is definitely not Arthur Smith's cup of tea. This is the most mobile quarterback pair that Arthur Smith has had probably in his entire coaching career. So, basically for Arthur Smith in terms of the offense, the defense has generally always been a Pittsburgh Steelers calling card. So I have nothing to say over there because that is always good. Generally always in a very good place. So honestly, Arthur Smith, the biggest thing that I got to tell you in here is don't screw it up. Do not screw it up. Or else you will be having a one-way ticket out of Pittsburgh as the offensive coordinator, just like Matt Canada did last year. Are we clear?
Yep. You okay there, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is the thing that the Steelers need to do. If they're going to make any sort of run, this is the thing they have to resolve.
Yeah.
See why I was looking at something that just said, can we stick to what to what is actually on the composition of the Steelers? Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep. So,
if you had another thought, I'll let you roll.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I was not really fond of the Arthur Smith signing for the coordinator job, but you already know my position on Artie Smith with this mustache. But it is.
And this is why I said what I said.
All right, for the Bengals, I put keep the core healthy and playoff hopes will probably stay alive because of that. Because last season, near the end there, Burrow had the thumb problem that kept him out, and then after that point, it was just kind of downhill from there. But Jake Browning had a good showing, but it wasn't consistent. So that's why I say keep the core healthy, and the playoff hopes will probably stay alive at that point.
Now, this is another team that I would love to say more about the running back situation. They've got Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Okay. That's one thing. But my main piece here is make the most of every pass that is completed from Joe Burrow to T. Higgins. Make the most of those, because I see this being the last season Cincinnati will have T. Higgins as wide receiver number 2. The reason why? The Bengals still have to pay Jamar Chase. They still have to pay Jamar Chase, but I think Jamar Chase is in a prove it. He might be in a put up or shut up type of situation anyway.
Yeah.
Granted, the quarterback play and health has been a little iffy, but I think that T. Higgins and wanting that contract and the type of money that Jamar Chase is going to want to try and garner, something is going to have to give. And it may be not so much what Jamar Chase gives up. I think it is going to be that T. Higgins, he may have another opportunity at a franchise tag depending on the value of the second time around. But I see T. Higgins testing the market. He's going to test the market. He's going to get signed somewhere that is going to value him a little bit more. And I think T. Higgins will find somewhere that'll be a solid home to impress.
All right.
Now, I should have done in between that Steelers thing and on to Cincinnati type of thing, but we're leaving Cincinnati and now going to the other end of Ohio and Cleveland.
All right. So for me, I put if the offense stays healthy, then you have a good shot to have a good season and perhaps a solid playoff push. Meaning, Watson needs to not have as many injury woes with the shoulder and whatnot, which also means you can't really have the situation again where you go through 4 quarterbacks in a stint of 4 or 5 games. And also, it helps to have reliable running backs like Nick Chubb and company healthy.
And there may not be a solid pocket quarterback like Joe Flacco available for you in that free agency for you to be able to take. I was just saying that in a generic sense.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco, is an Indianapolis Colt. That's one thing. But I'm saying there's not always a situation where you have a talented quarterback like that lying around. What the Cleveland Browns need to do as far as that is, don't expect to do that again. However, what I wrote down here is definitely take advantage of the opportunities that Jerome Ford had a year ago as an ability to manage the wear and tear on Nick Chubb as he prepares to return and keep the offense somewhat effective despite the health issues of the quarterbacks. The defense should be able to be the glue that holds the rest of it together to keep Cleveland in contention. Because Cleveland is another team that kind of, and it seems to be a common theme with 3 out of the 4 teams of the AFC North, that the defenses are kind of the common core and the brick and mortar that hold the foundation of the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Baltimore Ravens together. The Cincinnati Bengals are such a contrast of any of those other teams in the AFC North that it keeps the Bengals looking somewhat refreshing, but at the same time, it puts the Bengals in such a very weird identity in this division. It's almost like just saying that one of these things is not like the others. And now we go on to who we got in this division.
I think the Bengals win the division after critical wins against the Steelers and Browns late in the season to edge out the Ravens and have the Ravens be the second place team.
Oof. I disagree. I think Lamar Jackson last year, in terms of that passing game and all of the running back issues, it forced him to develop as an effective quarterback. Do I believe that Lamar Jackson is a competent quarterback that can push the Ravens now to a potential deep run? It has been more so now that I believe that it is possible than it has been in years past. And first things first with that, I believe the Ravens claim the division of the AFC North, but the Bengals will be right on their heels, and they will have an interesting and very physical rivalry with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now we have our bold prediction for the division.
All right.
Ruckus?
So for my bold prediction, I have Jamar Chase resurges and Burrow comes back strong to scare the Chiefs and the NFL alike.
I believe that the Steelers, with all of their effectiveness in terms of players that can run the football, I believe the Steelers can finish in the top 12 in rushing. In rushing offense. And I'm talking the team statistic, not with an individual. That the Steelers will finish in the top 12 in rushing. And now we move on to what Chris Berman years ago called the NFC North division.
All right. So we will start with the Lions, and I put that Dan Campbell and company need to improve on the little things like the 3rd and 4th down decisions and trust the players as you still do. Just be smarter on the 3rd and 4th down attempts, because that kind of bit you in the butt when it came to this the possible first Super Bowl for the franchise last season.
Yeah. But here is where I am at with the Detroit Lions. There is an old saying that says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Lions, in terms of philosophy, in terms of being able to be gritty, and I'm talking not the Justin Jefferson dance.
Yeah, I know.
I'm talking like grit, which is the mantra of MCDC. This is an if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of situation. Because in really both instances where they went for it on fourth down in that championship game, Josh Reynolds dropped one. And it was a ball that he should have caught. And the Lions just somehow took point with certain situations where most teams would normally be a little more conservative and put points up. They spent a little too much time taking the points off the board. Yeah, is this an aggressive approach? Yes. Is this truly how Dan Campbell wants to run it? Yes. I'm going to say this. Sometimes those will pay off. Sometimes won't. Sometimes they won't. But still, ultimately, if the concepts that you have going on for the better part of it ain't broke, don't fix it. The schedule's going to be tougher, but should they remain resilient in concepts and keep themselves healthy and stay bought into that system, great things are going to happen. I am high on the Detroit Lions this season once again. Just simply because Dan Campbell has put together a system and a philosophy that is one of the easiest to buy into in terms of the players that they are bringing in. I have loved the direction that Dan Campbell has been taking this Detroit Lions team for years. And it kind of tailors off to what the NFC North is. A very gritty and grindy division. It's just like it fits like a glove. And it's going to be like that for years to come.
Yep. Next we go the Green Bay Packers.
The frozen tundra.
And for me, I put be smart with the ball and continue the success of Jordan Love and the young wide receiver core. I think if you keep doing what you were doing, that got you as a sleeper in the NFC as like a wild card, I think you have something special there for the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, yeah. And what they've done. The biggest thing that Packers fans can brag on is that they have had 20 plus years of good quarterback play. 20 plus years of good quarterback play. Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love has shown the early remnants so far of good quarterback play in Green Bay and drafting proactively at the quarterback position. Drafting proactively and ahead of schedule in quarterback positions to allow the quarterback time to develop as the old school philosophy in the NFL used to be. And they have shown and are the team of evidence as to why that works and how that works. If you give the offense a good mix of run and pass, remain solid defensively like you have, especially in that later stretch last season, pick up a lot of where you left off. The good quarterback play of Jordan Love is going to shine with a great support on all three aspects of the game. I think the Green Bay Packers are a team that can very easily be in the wild card race, contend for the division if the Lions falter. But I think the Packers are very solid on the wild card competitive scale. And next we go on to the Monsters of the Midway and the Bears.
Yes, sir. All right. I put for my input, I put keep Caleb Williams happy and healthy while feeding the wide receiver core and running core the ball. Because if you do that right, you have a recipe for success. The defense will probably show some signs of greatness too, but mainly make sure Caleb Williams has the confidence out there to succeed.
Basically, the issue that generally comes about with Caleb Williams is he has an affinity for the spectacular. And sometimes spectacular is not necessarily needed, especially in a division as grindy as the NFC North. However, I have embraced the growing pains of developing young quarterbacks in rookie Caleb Williams and also the backup, which probably will very well be the sophomore Tyson Bagent. Yes, the key here, I say, is embrace the growing pains of developing the young quarterbacks you have. Because that is going to be the biggest thing that I think will hold the Bears back. It's not the defense. It's not the amount of receiver talent. It's not the running back talent with guys like DeAndre Swift. It's going to be the growing pains that come with developing young quarterbacks. The Bears have had to deal with that for a very long time, and it is certain that they will have a lot of that now. And now we move on to the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, so I put protect J.J. McCarthy and solidify the bond between J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson and the wide receiver core in general.
They are another team that I think is truly in a rebuild and reconstruction mode. They are going to have to embrace the grind and growing pains of a potential rebuild. As this also will be another team that will have to embrace the growing pains of a young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy and his development as what is going to be at least the chosen replacement for Kirk Cousins. And I think for J.J. McCarthy, it's almost like Kevin O'Connell needs to bring like a little bit of like a West Coast system, which is generally his bread and butter anyway. I think that keeping the passes short, wear down defenses with long drives of short plays, staying on schedule, is I think ultimately the way that Minnesota will win games. Wear them down, keep the games close, and ultimately, like 2 years ago, in order for them to make a deep run, they're gonna have to have the scales on close games go their way. Last year, it didn't do that. 2 years ago, it definitely did. And now the winner of the NFC North predicted. We both are in agreement, but in two different fashions.
I think the Lions edge out the Packers in a close race. I think the Packers come with a chip on their shoulder, and the Lions are in a close race with the Packers in that sense, and I think the Lions still win the division.
The Lions get a little grindy. They win the division. The Packers will be right behind them, though. As Jordan Love's solid quarterback play, I believe, will be good enough to put them in a position. Though, I also think that they, production-wise, will be more pass-oriented. As you will see here in a potential prediction that I make. Your bold prediction, Ruckus.
My bold prediction is the Bears sneak into the playoffs, scraping by the Packers, but losing to the Lions to get one of the last wild card spots in the NFC.
I have the reason why I think the Packers will go a little more pass oriented is that I think that Josh Jacobs is in the wrong. I don't think he's on the correct team when it comes to a big, I would say more so just a big name going to a team that has had very mixed success in running the football. Josh Jacobs will not be a 1,000-yard rusher this season. And now we can move on to our stud and dud this week. Ruckus, take it away.
All right. So, for my stud this week, I have Carson Steele, the fullback running back hybrid of the Chiefs, the UDFA, making eye-catching first impressions, including being the first Chief of the season to have a touchdown in Game 1, running it in to the end zone. He's been looking really good. We'll see if he is the backup behind Pacheco or if he is one of the third string or fourth strings. We'll see. But my dud revolves around Aaron Rodgers for his immunization remarks in 2021. He says he regrets saying that he was immunized after being allergic to one of the ingredients in both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines for COVID. He goes on to say that he should have said that instead of the hoopla that occurred during the 2021 season, as written in his biography, Out of the Darkness, The Mystery of Aaron Rodgers. Probably one of the most not creative titles ever for a biography, but I just thought that title was funny nonetheless. But, yeah, I think it's kind of dumb that he didn't just come out and say that it was because of an allergy to the ingredients. But at that time, it was very, very controversial to be either on the fence about getting the vaccine or not getting it at all and just making matters worse.
All right. So, you will notice a common theme with my setup of my stud and dud this week. And I will start with the stud to kind of set up the theme. It actually is Tom Cruise for going full send on an Ethan Hunt bit in the closing ceremonies of the Paris 24 Olympics as part of a twofold promotion. Number one, the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. And number two, because he was dressed in his Ethan Hunt garb. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 that releases next year. I am really excited for that movie because especially more so the back end Mission Impossible movies have reviewed outstandingly. And I saw Dead Reckoning Part 1 and it is really good. I mean, granted that I do believe that Tom Cruise's best movie pair is the Top Gun movies. But Mission Impossible is probably Tom Cruise's greatest franchise. And speaking of Top Gun, the honorable mention I have here is Commanders coach Dan Quinn for using the Buzz the Tower reference from Top Gun in a post-game interview about Jaden Daniels' audible on the 42-yard pass play to De'Ami Brown that set up his tutty on a 3-yard scramble, on a 3-yard read option play in his only drive of the game against the Jets on Saturday. And Dan Quinn just perfectly had that there as like where he looked at like the "Do I have permission to buzz the tower" clip. And yeah, Jaden Daniels went kind of on his own in calling that audible, but it was something that Cliff Kingsbury had told him, like, if you don't like the look, audible out. And he picked the right audible. And I have a very good feeling that there is potential for Jaden Daniels to be the starting quarterback of the Washington Commanders this season. But then my dud this week is Tyreek Hill. In spite of his feeling the need for speed, in saying that he could beat the world's fastest man, Noah Lyles, in a 100-meter dash. It is speculated that Tyreek Hill has a 9.98 100-meter time with the wind and a 10.19 without. Lyles won the gold at the Olympics with a 9.79. And on top of that, we won't even get to this, but it says he also said that he should be the number one player in the NFL, saying that he was better than Patrick Mahomes.
I mean,
especially when you two were on the same team.
He is the number one player in the NFL according to the rankings right now. And I think Mahomes was like 4th, even though he just went back-to-back Super Bowl. So,
and Mahomes is such a wizard with the football. And Tyreek Hill has to do a lot without it. Granted. But I don't think that Tyreek Hill truly is the number one player in the NFL. No, that's hogwash. For me, honestly, the number one player in the NFL, especially as far as being able to do what he needs to do, and just the hands and grit that come along with it, I still think it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. But Tyreek Hill is a 99 in Madden this year, so what do I know? But let's attack the real reason here that Tyreek is under the stud. Trying to pull, of course, his need for speed with that time. Noah Lyles' worst time during the Olympics was a 10.04. Tyreek Hill cannot run that without wind. Without the wind at his back. So no, Tyreek Hill, you cannot beat the world's fastest man. You probably could not even beat a 37-year-old washed-up Usain Bolt who probably still could run a 9.79 with his eyes closed. Tyreek Hill, you may be what you're claiming as the fastest player in the NFL, which you probably may not even be that now. But you might have better game speed than you do track speed. And that to me, I'm sorry, track speed is better on a track. Game speed, you've got it better with the pads on. You don't need to weigh Noah Lyles down with the pads because you guys are talking about stuff on a track. Lyles would smoke you.
Yeah, for sure.
Ruckus, go ahead and take us out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast. This is Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
And I'm Ruckus the Menace.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, our awesome podcast. This is a Ruckus and The Menace Sports production. We'll see you guys in episode 111.
Deuces, everybody.